Alright, let's get down on my living room floor. I think the great philosopher Snoop Dogg once said that. Today I want to talk about the true nature of knowledge and what knowing actually is. Epistemology for those who like fancy words. What makes a fact? What makes the truth the truth? Let's find out, but as usual, context is what defines everything, so let's start there. I'm not sure it's possible to convince anyone of the answers to life's biggest questions. How did we get here? How should we behave? Where do we go when we die? One cannot reason their way to the answers to these questions. Direct experience is the only way to come to understand these things, but once you experience it, you can't bring it back or demonstrate proof to your friends. So, scientifically speaking, all you have is an anecdotal experience. How ridiculous is it that science completely disregards first-hand human experience as anecdotal? It's laughable. If somehow, in the end of all of this, it turns out that perspective and experience is all that there really is, hypothetically speaking, let's say, then science as it is today is the act of looking away from all that there really is. It's as if science is examining everything except the one thing it should be most focused on in its search for answers, which is sort of the same thing that people do, isn't it? What a coinkydink. This isn't about bashing science, though. Science is a tool, a phenomenal tool for pattern recognition. If I'm bashing anything, it's the way the tool has been turned into an ideology with its own dogma. But if we're getting to the root of the matter, science is the product of logic and reason, and that's what I'm most interested in examining. The next scientific breakthrough, when that comes, what'll happen is we'll recognize that everything we have learned is a pattern or a tendency, not a fixed law. Logic and reason deal in terms of fixed laws, right? If X is true, then it can't also be false, for example. The paradox of reality is that things can be both true and false at the same time, depending on perspective. Sort of like asking if it is nighttime or daytime on Earth. It's both is the truth and the correct answer. This underlying truth cripples logic in a number of big ways. So for one to argue, I'm right because logic and reason dictate so, it doesn't necessarily follow is true. What the heck does being right even mean in the first place? I think we're better off regarding science and known facts as tendencies or habituations of the universe. We need to keep this in mind when we form our arguments from known facts. If we begin to think about the universe in terms of frequency and vibration, everything seems to make a little more sense. A bell that is ringing will continue to ring, albeit a little bit less and a little bit differently with each reverberation. If an intelligence has a tendency to keep socks on the left side of the drawer and tighty-whities on the righty, it will continue with its tendency until acted upon by some force, even if the force to change is self-created. No outside force is required. That is what willpower and free will is, the power to change habituation and tendency. If an intelligence has a tendency to organize electrons around a nucleus and planets around stars, it will all continue with its tendency unless it finds a different or better way and wants to try that. So what? So what if nothing is provable and the unknown can never be known? What should humanity be doing with its desire to know and prove things? We find all these useful patterns and tendencies in the world. I think it's in our nature to use what we know and keep looking for more. The whole time, we have to keep in mind that the solid ground we think we're standing on doesn't actually exist because reality itself is groundless. There's nothing actually here. Just one big mind having an experience on a unified field or whatever we're calling it. People have this funny conception where they've been told that their mind is something that's in between their ears, existing in this finite, definable space. This is what we've been taught and what we've been indoctrinated with. Well, it's there too, but the big picture is that you are already inside your mind. And the mind that you're in has a mind inside of it too. That's you, the ego mind. which is the one that people identify with as their one and only mind. Everything that we observe outside of our head in the real world is still within a greater mind. Call it the universe or God, an infinite field. Pick one or just create another arbitrary concept yourself. The important thing to recognize here is that there is no need for matter or anything other than mind to form a coherent worldview and understanding. Let's forget about the dogma for a moment and stop trying to figure out how matter creates mind. Instead, let's see if we can figure out how mind creates matter. Think about it. When you go to bed at night and dream, your mind creates another reality automatically without your permission. It then severs much of your memory and your attachment to the real world and places your consciousness inside this dream world that it created, and it limits your access to the outside, higher level information. And it fools you into thinking that it's real while it's happening. It fools you by creating earth for you to walk on, a body for you to move around in. You can see, smell, and feel with it, and even other beings for you to talk to and interact with. Your mind does this all automatically without your conscious awareness. It's really important that you understand that. That is what your mind does. That's what mind does. That is its tendency, its habituation. So what I'm suggesting is that this is the nature of mind. This is the pattern it perpetuates, and it is doing so at every level, including right this very second in your waking consciousness. Your mind has created this vast and complex real world and placed your awareness inside of it with a storyline, just like it does in your dreams at night. This is what mind does automatically. It's been doing this long before you showed up and were even a concept, since the beginning of time, if there is such a thing. It echoes and reverberates with its own version of a real world in all sorts of interesting ways. Some echoes are similar, some echoes are distorted or different in some way. It's all one big interconnected soup passing information back and forth through these reverberations or frequencies. How do you know you are not dreaming right now? You won't know for sure until you wake up, also known as dying to many. The people are sleeping. When they die, they wake up, said every prophet ever in some way, shape, or form. And then what happens once you wake up? Then you're in the real world, right? Then we awaken from the dream world, right? Well, how do we know that that world is real? We'll be in the same situation as we are in now, albeit at a higher level of awareness and complexity. How far does it go? How many levels deep is the infinite mind? Does it ever end? I'd wager no, that infinity does not end, that it will in fact keep going in any direction that we look, however many levels up or down the ladder of consciousness. This is the universe propagating its pattern of creation or survival. Hello, universe.